Glad I double-checked that. Mike wasn't even on. But anyways, this is a bit of a break in our typical Tropics Talk discussion time. I'm pulling stuff up right now, and I'm more so making this for the record. We've been talking about this on Instagram, for those of you who follow me out there on my Instagram page, WXCenter_Nazario, and it looks like it looks like the GFS and the icon now may be spot on with what we were talking about a few days ago. I'm slowly pulling everything up right now. This is going to be a very brief lunchtime update. I'm watching the 12Z GFS model data come in, and it has something down there in the Caribbean. It pushes it into the Yucatan Peninsula, very similar to what we saw with Idalia earlier in the season. But I think the only way that something might make landfall in the Gulf is if this frontal area that spins into a low pressure is something. Hey guys, thanks for joining in. So we're breaking in. I told you guys if we do a different Tropics Talk out of nowhere, that's because something pressing is going on. So no one's talking about it, and I'm claiming that right now for those of you watching. No one's talking about it, but we have vorticity that came out of the Caribbean right here. If you guys, whenever the freaking Tropical Tidbits updates, we had vorticity wander out of Central America last night. There's a spin right here, and take a look at this tropical wave that's flaring up big time. Everyone's fixated on our upper level low over the Yucatan Peninsula right now, but that's what I've been watching the last few days, not only in my Weather Center segments, but also on my Instagram, and I just pumped out a bunch of updates right now because no one has noticed it. I've been tracking it the last 72 hours, and there's a good amount of vorticity coming off of Panama as we speak, and it's really intensifying that tropical wave that NHC has highlighted, spewing a bunch of thunderstorm activity over Jamaica and up into Cuba. There's a giant anti-cyclone getting ready to move right over top of it too, which is why we're seeing such potent thunderstorm activity with it. You can kind of see it right in through here. You can see a little bit of shearing going across in a clockwise fashion, and as that moves overhead, I think we're going to see development. And no one is talking about it. I'm going to say it again. No one is talking about it. That's why I'm kind of getting on here for the record right now. I've been watching it in between, working and whatnot. Icon has it. GFS has it. Icon has something sneaking out of the Caribbean. You start at the 12Z run. There's all our moisture with that tropical wave right there. And as you track it north, the system we're all fixating on is here in the Gulf of Mexico. That's going to disappear. That's not what we're fixating on. If you go forward in time, it doesn't label a low, but look at all this consolidation in the precip field right here. And as it moves up to the north, very similar to what Idalia did, look at the closed low. Look at that closed circulation that we get just off the Florida coastline. And then it's just a matter of racing against time. It's racing against time because we have that frontal system coming down, and overnight last night, the GFS and the Euro were in a very split difference. The GFS at 0Z had a massive frontal system coming down to the south. You can see it going all the way into the Caribbean, the southern periphery of the Gulf of Mexico, and there it is. There's our system forming up, but it gets completely washed out because of how massive of a high pressure we have coming down, and it gets shoved right into the Yucatan Peninsula. But according to the icon and what the Euro was kind of whispering to overnight last night, that might be changing. So that's why I'm coming in right now, put it out there on the record. There it is pushing into the Yucatan on the 12Z run. So that's going to be interesting to see what it actually does if it moves into the Yucatan. Icon has it moving due north. I don't think it's even on the Canadian model, unfortunately. Canadian model isn't picking it up whatsoever. It doesn't have a wave or any. Yeah, there's nothing on the Canadian model right now. Let's see, maybe it'll start to pop up as you go down the road. No, not at all. Not at all. So, Canadian model doesn't have it out there. Icon and GFS have a great handle on where all of our upper level vorticity is with it. You come on over to the Vort chart. There's what I was watching yesterday and the day before right there. It's very weak, but watch how it ejects off to the north thanks to our anticyclone over Haiti, Dominican Republic, and whatnot. You go through time. Give me my mouse back. You go through time and look at how it consolidates and starts to spin something up and rotate right over Cuba up towards the Florida Peninsula. And that's either what's going to induce our low on the opposite side of the state, or it could form something up in the interim because there's a heck of a lot of vorticity out there right now, and satellite is doing a fantastic job of picking that up. And like I said, no one is talking about it. That is a very healthy tropical wave that's igniting as we speak because of the vorticity that came off the shore. I'll step through it very slowly. If you guys watch right in through here, there is a very, very weak cyclonic spin that just drifts off of Panama and heads due north. And as our anticyclone right out here, spinning around like so, begins to work its way to the west, once these two meet up, which is what I was afraid of, watch how our thunderstorm activity explodes. So there's our spin coming off of Panama. You can see the thunderstorm activity really flaring up with it. It's right here. Very hard to, or very easy to miss. Very easy to miss. And then as you go through time, here, well, you can't see my hand. I'll mark it with a stampage. So here it is right about at this point in the loop. Here's our anticyclone now having moved over to this portion of the screen. And once these two meet up and we get that difluence aloft, we go forward in time, forward in time. Here's the vorticity right there. Vorticity is now moved into this area. Anticyclone is now beginning to position itself right over top of it. And then notice how our thunderstorms just blow up. Blow up! Now, whether or not these hold together, that remains to be seen, but I'm putting it out there right now that whatever the GFS has been highlighting, it's starting to try to take shape. I don't know if this is going to be a storm, but that is a very healthy tropical wave that just came out of nowhere. None of the models are picking it up. I'm glad someone is talking about this. The IR in this area is blowing up, and it just has that look of something is bubbling. Yeah, it's definitely a tropical wave. I cross-referenced it in between my work schedule right now just to make sure I'm not tripping out. I thought maybe it was, difluent flow from our upper level system right here, maybe creating a little bit of upward vertical motion, sparking that off. But no, NHC has a good old tropical wave right there. And because that anticyclone is now overhead, and we had that little bubble of breakaway vorticity come up off of Panama, we have something forming. Now it's just going to be a matter of if this low out here can get the heck out of the way before shearing it apart, and if it could make its way into the Gulf of Mexico before our frontal system comes down for October 1st next weekend. It's pretty much a race against time. I really want to see what the rest of the GFS shows, because the 12Z right now has that area of vorticity moving into the Yucatan Peninsula. Last night it had something forming up, but getting completely blasted by that front coming south. Yeah, see, this model run has it pushing into the Bay of Campeche, moving to the west towards Central America. So it's still highlighting something, but it's doing some weird things with it. In fact, if you look at the frontal system now, the GFS does have it stalling out over Florida. Whereas if you go back in time to 0Z yesterday, look at how much further south it has it moving. Has it way down to the south at this point. And there's our system forming up, but it gets completely knocked to shreds because of how aggressive that frontal system coming down is. There it is. You can see our high pressure situates itself right over top the southeastern United States just in time for next weekend and the beginning of next week, and that kind of shoves it off to the west. And then we try to get something else spinning up right out of that general area. And you know what? Typically, I would discount the GFS. But the fact that the GFS was spot on to an extent, I mean, the intensity was a little wishy-washy. Some models had it just as a low. Other ensembles had it as an actual hurricane. The fact that the GFS highlighted this days in advance, because if you guys remember, we were talking about this on Wednesday, Tropics Talk. I think Monday and even Wednesday more especially on our Tropics Talk because of how aggressive the ensemble members were starting to get. And it's out there now. And no one is picking up on it. I don't know why people are still broadcasting this thing right here. That's not tropical. It's breakaway vorticity from what helped spin up Ophelia. This is what I've been fixating on and why I've been mentioning in my video a couple days ago the Hail Mary that's going to come out of the Caribbean and just pop something off. Okay, let me dial the hype down a little bit. Now I'm definitely hyping a little bit, I'll admit. Very good convection for, like you said, GF has been sniffing at this ever so slightly. Absolutely, it has. I really want to see what the rest of GFS has to say when 12Z fully populates. All right, we're 150 hours in now. Let's go forward in time. Yeah, so GFS brings in a much weaker frontal system, that's for sure, but has the system not making its way to the north. So this could possibly change, because that's a discrepancy between what Icon has for it. Icon is very wishy-washy with its development, but Icon starts it out right in this general area, that source region here, and then moves it due north. And then you get a really big, I don't know why it cuts like that. I don't know why the Icon does that every now and again. It jumps hours. But you can see we have a low situated right there. Something's spinning right there in the Gulf. If I were NHC, and this is just my opinion, If I were NHC, I would pop something on my chart right now. I would pop something on my chart. Get rid of this little thing, because that's not going to be there in 24 hours. I can promise you guys that. I would pop my chart out, and I'd put something right there. I'd put it. I don't give a crap if it forms or not. The fact that there is something there, way more organized than that thing, just because we have an upper-level spin with it, that I'd throw it out there right now. And I don't care if I get flame or hype for it or anything like that. I'd put it out there. Because I bet you 10 to 1, if I were to switch over to, we'll use the icon as a matter of fact, if I were to go over to 200 millibar wins, we have that high height right over top of it, and there it is. There it is. That's what's going to help to try to instigate it and get rid of the shear that's down there right now. So the reason it's probably this could get dangerous here in a couple days, and I use that term loosely for those of you watching afterward. I know y'all like to flame me for my verbiage. I'm not saying dangerous to people. I'm saying treacherous for the storm, because this is where we are right now, and you can see we still have some good shear out there. There's still some good shear thanks to that system that's moving through the Yucatan right now. And that's why I don't think we're going to see any tropical development from it. Here's our actual analysis, and you can see it's under a tremendous amount of shear. There's a lot of shear out there, but you give it just a couple more hours. We'll go forward 24 hours from now, and it's going to be right underneath that anticyclone that all of our models have been tracking for the last few days. Once it can get underneath that anticyclone, kind of like what it's trying to do right now, get into the difluent quadrant of it out ahead of it, that's when things could get very spicy for it. I'm astonished that CMC doesn't have anything on it, because CMC has that same anticyclone right there, which is going to lower the pressures for the general Caribbean altogether across the board. Let's go back to the actual model. Let's see if it's picking up on anything now that we're so far out in the run. No, it's not picking up on anything. I mean, you could kind of make an argument that, albeit disorganized, there's something here that moves west-northwest. It looks like there's a little bit of an atmospheric pinwheel in precip that wanders over the Yucatan and then pushes into Central America, Mexico. And then what's also been interesting the last few days that a lot of people aren't talking about is the fact that we've had such a shift in what Philippe is doing out there. Look at this. We have that westward trend going on again. Granted, it's once again going to enter an area of unfavorable conditions, so it's likely not to hold itself together, but I find it really curious that we've had such model trends across the board. I think GFS is doing the same thing with it. Yeah, GFS has it pushing west, interacting with Rena when she gets her act together. So yeah, GFS doesn't have anything coming out of that system. It has it kind of washing itself out in the Bay of Campeche. Very curious to see what Euro says now. I saw a model putting this towards Cuba. Yeah, the last couple days, I think I take it with a grain of salt because of the model run, but I think 18Z yesterday had it on there as something. Yeah, there it is. It forms off to the south and then gets picked up by that potent frontal boundary next weekend and then forms up over the Bahamas and then goes up the East Coast. And then everyone was talking about this yesterday, this big old thing that comes out of the Caribbean and hits Florida. I don't trust that. I'm more fixated on what's happening right now, because this actually makes a lot of sense with what GFS was depicting at 18Z. And let me see what 12Z had yesterday. I really didn't pay too much mind to it because of what we saw. Yeah, so 12Z didn't have anything on there. 12Z, I mean, it had like a little glimmer of something trying to form itself up between Yucatan and Cuba, but that was about it. And then it dissipates, and then we had something else trying to sneak into the Caribbean. The fact that the Icon model has something spinning up, though, it's a little lax on it developing or not. And I wonder if that's because we have wind shear out there again. Yeah, it looks like it could wander out of its favorable environment back into an area of wind shear with that next trough that's coming in. So I wonder if that's why it's a little hesitant to put intensity to it. GFS, let me see what future shear looks like. 200 millibar wind shear. Yeah, once it gets out of the Caribbean, it's going to be fighting for its life because we have that trough axis coming back down to the south. And maybe that's why this system doesn't want to develop. It's truly a race against time. If it can get out there ahead of all this stuff here, if it can make its way in, then that's bad. That's definitely bad. But it's there, and it's forming up. That's definitely a tropical wave right there. And then blammo, boom, big-time convection with it. That's some powerful thunderstorm activity, too. We just got to get it out of all that wind shear that's coming in from the southwest. All this right here is going to be really good wind shear. That's why it's looking very elongated and ragged out right now. But there's our tropical wave. It moves in and then interacts with that vorticity and that anticyclone aloft. So, yeah. I saw them really, yes, 18Z. I just have to check that. I also saw GFS want a Cat 3 or 4 hitting the west coast of Florida. Yeah, with how unbelievable warm the waters are down there, I wouldn't rule anything out. Yeah, but point is that models are picking up something. That's something indeed. I think it's highly unlikely, but imagine if Philippe goes to the U.S. and survives. You know, I've been contemplating that as well, because a lot of folks have been counting Philippe out because of the wind shear out there. And yes, it's a sheared system, but he's trying to consolidate. It was looking pretty good yesterday. Now we have a bit of an exposed center starting to form up. His thunderstorm activity is weakening, but some of the models still want to instigate hurricane strength. Maybe even a Cat 3. No, I'm just kidding. No. That's definitely a member that's out to lunch. Oh, yeah, look at that. At 12Z, we had the switcheroo happen again. Yesterday, this happened. A nice fork in the road. Some going that way, some going this way. Look at what the H-Werf does. H-Werf brings it down this way. I think that's the initial phases of it interacting with Rena when she gets her act together. But yeah, so this is primarily what I'm going to fixate on later on today when I make my full segment of Weather Center Nazaria. I wanted to get this live out there as fast as I could because I know for certain nobody is talking about it. No one's highlighting it. No one's posted about it. No one's sharing anything about it. And regardless of anything comes together or not, the fact that we have something out there and the GFS has been whispering in our ear that something could pop up right in this general area the last several days is a little concerning, because if it does decide to consolidate and that system out over here can finally get out of the way and remove the wind shear that's over top of it right now, if it could execute in that small window of time that it has, this could change the entire ballgame. Like I said, look at the thumbnail. I called it in my video, the Hail Mary. It's looking for something. There's something out there, and it might throw a Hail Mary. It might not. I'm not saying 100% yes. I'm not saying 100% no. We're on the fence right now. You can call it a timeout, basically. They're wondering if they're going to go for the Hail Mary or not. Fourth in inches, we'll say. Because we have the anticyclone, everyone's been talking about the hot waters, and now we have the tropical wave and the vorticity helping to ignite such a cluster of thunderstorm activity. And it's not spinning, but regardless, it's consolidated. It's all right there. It's all right there and very aggressively bubbling up. The problem is we have this upper level low right there. That upper level cold pocket. You can see it very well on the water vapor image too. I'll switch over to that. I don't know why I did that. I was already on the satellite. I could have just switched the view. Let's go back down there. Let's go to water vapor. Yeah, see, there it is. You can see the jet energy really digging in from up north, that channel darkening, working its way right into the base of that upper low. All that good cold air or cool air induced convection popping off around it. That's why I was so frustrated yesterday, again, when National Hurricane Center popped something for that. Because, like, guys, are you not looking in the upper levels of the atmosphere? Are you just like firing things off when you see a low? They're getting trigger happy now, I feel like, and they need to slow it down, digest the impacts. Because looking at this, the center's over the Yucatan. That's definitely not tropical once again, which is bizarre. I don't know why they have it highlighted. And everyone once again is talking, oh, development for the Gulf, watch out. And it's like, no, that's not what's going to happen. This is the main thing we need to be watching right now. In fact, before I end the stream, let's go over to windy.com. I'm on my lunch break right now for those of you currently watching, and for those who will watch later. I was sitting there having almost a mini seizure in my chair, like I got to talk about this. Yeah, see, there's nothing out there right now. We just have a nice little tropical wave moving through. But, yeah. Once we can get all that upper level shear out of the way, that's what's really going to play a role in what happens to that system out there. Because right now we just have strong winds blowing across it. And then, yeah, there's our shear. There's our shear and our upper level low right there. So that's what's probably going to erode it. If it continues to move too fast and it outruns this anticyclone, that's where we could run into it completely falling apart. So now it's a huge toss-up. Even on the water vapor map, man, look at that bad boy out there bubbling. Yeah, no, it's got a lot of moisture content with it. And that's something else I've been watching, too, is the last few days, our Euro and all our models pretty much were expecting a huge surge of relative humidity from down there. I'll use the 12Z GFS as an example. We'll go back in time a little bit, see how much dry air we had in the Caribbean. This is Saturday. I went back before the valid time. And then you go forward in time and watch right here, right around Panama, parts of Colombia and all that. Look at how all of a sudden we just get a huge boom, surge of moisture all the way through there. And you can see it spinning. You see it spinning right there. 12Z GFS has it moving into the coastline, and then here comes that next big frontal system right there for next weekend. Look at the timestamp. So that's where it really becomes a race against time. If it can get picked up and accelerated out of there and form underneath our anticyclone, game on. There's that Hail Mary I was talking about. If it doesn't, then exactly what we're seeing right here is what could possibly pan out with it. And it'll fizzle over the Yucatan, get pushed west with that system coming down, and then we'll say bye-bye to it. National Hurricane Center takes a while. They do, yeah. They really do, actually. I don't think they have anything on there right now. I think I just had it pulled up. Yeah. Refresh, see if maybe they add it. Nope. They still have this guy on there. I don't know why. It's not even right there. It's down here. But all right, I just wanted to come on in real fast, put this on my channel, break out to you guys, and talk about something that no one's been highlighting, because right now the Caribbean is getting ripped right now with rainfall. Like Jamaica could be seeing very heavy rain right now, possibly some localized flooding. Cuba as well has been seeing a lot of precip, both from this system, leftover frontal moisture from Ophelia. And now we have this big old tropical wave popping off. Let's take a look at what the Viz looks like, or the True Color, see what it looks like on there. Yeah, see, actually, you know what? I wish I could zoom in. Let me go to Weather Nerds. Let me backpedal on my saying I'm going to end the stream because I just saw something. Let's go to satellite. We'll go to other regions. Where are my other regions? There we go. We'll go down to Atlantic Pacific. Let me switch to visible satellite. Update plot. And then we'll zoom way in. It's one thing I like about Weather Nerds is you could zoom way the heck in. And let's loop it for 50 panels. Watch at the very southernmost base of this tropical wave right here, right in this general region. Once it loads up for me, if it does. Of course, now it's off to the side. Look at our little low-level spin right there, trying to pop up. It's not necessarily all the way up here. This is probably the rest of our wave pushing to the west. But there is a very, very minuscule spin right there over open water in the southern Caribbean. And maybe that's what the GFS and the Icon are trying to highlight right now with their most recent model runs. And even the GFS over the last few days had something coming off, and there's a little bit of a circulation. Very weak, very broad, or actually I should say isolated and slow spinning circulation down there. But then all in all, look at the lightning strikes we have in that tropical wave as well. Let me zoom out again, and then we'll just zoom into the big picture. Messed up that satellite shot, but oh well. There we go. Get loop. So yeah. They do for sure. Wait until 2 p.m. next update. That's true. That's going to be coming very soon. NHC forecaster is going to drop his turkey sandwich when he pops the IR loop up before the afternoon. That's a lot of thunderstorm convection. Yeah, like that's a pretty potent wave right there. And the reason we're probably seeing it is because that anticyclone just back behind it is trying to catch up, put it under more favorable conditions. Now it's just a matter of if we can evacuate this spin right here out of the picture. Man, see, I don't understand why National Hurricane Center has something highlighted here. The low is down here over the Yucatan. Maybe there's like an embedded wave or some kind of energy extending back off in this direction, but there's our low. You can see it plain as day. And then here's our next big bad boy. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and call it. I wanted to do it 30-minute. I wanted to do a 30-minute stream. This way I still had time to eat and get ready for the second half of work. Thanks for the update from Southwest Florida. Absolutely, Dion. Of course. Thanks for tuning in. Just for the record, as we get towards the very end and I hit end stream, if you're watching this later on today, I am going to give a full Weather Center segment update on this, especially once we get all 12Z data in. I want to see what the Euro is talking about, because Icon and GFS shows something, albeit just very distorted. I want to see what Euro highlights, and then we'll go from there. And I want to see what 12Z ensembles look like, because we still have about 24, 48 hours before it wanders into an area where there's no chance of it developing. So it's going to have at least a day or two to either try to consolidate as fast as it can, tap it into that ocean heat content and the sea surface temps that everyone's been raving about, or we're not going to get anything out of it at all. It's a huge toss-up right now, an enormous toss-up, but I had to get something out there and start talking about this, because you don't like seeing that in the Caribbean, especially when everyone's been hyping up how hot the water is out there, worrying about this thing, and it's like we have this coming along back behind it. So we should probably pay more attention to this than opposed to this, because that's all upper level. I mean, you can even see the jet activity back behind it here. Look at all those open cell cumulus flowing around this side of it on the northwest apex of it. So that's not going to do anything. That's probably turning more into an upper tropospheric trough more than anything, and that's what could possibly either help it or shear it. We have two dueling entities right here. We have a low over the Yucatan, and then we have this high height center just back behind it, and it's sandwiched in between the two. So this is going to be extremely difficult to forecast, and I think that's why the models are doing all sorts of dorky things with it as well, because it's not just an open water with one thing or another playing on it. There's so many different things messing around with it right now. Let's see if any of the GFS ensembles have come in just yet. We have 84 hours worth of ensembles. Let's see if it does anything with it. Kind of, sort of. I mean, there's lower pressure working its way into the state of Florida coming out of the Caribbean. Nothing too crazy. But early GFS ensembles have something in the remnants or on the shape of a tropical depression-like system coming out of there, forming up right about where our area of disorganized weather is what I'll call it, is right there, and then tracking off in this general direction. If it does form up, it'll definitely be something that the Gulf Coast and especially Florida needs to watch. Absolutely, abso-frickin-lutely, I'm going to say, because that's in a very bad position with that frontal system coming down, and then the one later on, or I should say the trough axis digging in from back this way, and then our front, you can see it in the high pressure coming down like this. So if it does try to spin, I'm talking even if it just spins a little bit, I'm not calling depression or anything like that. Even if it spins and just becomes an area of thunderstorms, tropical thunderstorms, is going to come our way here in Florida. So let's see what happens. We're going to have to watch real-time data more so than the models, I feel like, at least for this next 12, 24-hour period. But that definitely wasn't there this morning. You go back to the beginning of the loop and look at that. Nothing. You had all this up here, which is why so many people are probably making videos and content on what was happening up here. And then it's like we had a shifting of power. All that washed out, and then look at all this right there. Massive. Now we'll have to see in the next 6 to 8 hours if it, develops. I mean, not develops, excuse me, if it holds together. Thanks for the update. I feel like my prediction for 21-10-5 might come true. Good stuff. Jacob, thank you very much. Complicated setup for them. Yeah, very, because I don't think any of them were even picking up on this. They were thinking that something was going to wander off of the gyre like everyone was talking about. It looks like we had some breakaway vorticity from that same general area come up and start to try to form this bad boy in. And then with that anticyclone spinning right through here, that big one that's going to situate itself over the Caribbean, this could win, or we have this tut low out here and all that wind shear driving around the back side and the western side of it that could shear it out. So it's kind of like the last round of going head-to-head against a prime Mike Tyson. Who's going to win? You have the anticyclone, and then it's like Tyson Fury over the Caribbean, and then Mike Tyson over the Yucatan Peninsula. Some people say Tyson Fury would win. Other people say Mike Tyson would win. And it's like, it's anybody's best guess right now, but it's definitely sandwiched in between that area. And I don't want anyone to try to tell me that it's just general thunderstorms popping off right there, because it's not. It wouldn't make any sense. You have winds coming off of the high pressure like this, and then you have winds coming out of this direction here. So there's actually confluent flow down in this area until you get to about here. That's where it probably spreads out. And we'll go to windy.com just to confirm my theory. There you go. Yeah, the difluent flow is not over top of it. So that's not just garden variety thunderstorms forming right there. All of our difluent flow is actually out here over the Bahamas, Florida, Cuba, and that's why they're getting thunderstorm activity. There's our high height center. We're at 250 millibars. Here is where our system would be. And then there's all that additional shear out ahead of it with that tut low, or whatever you want to call it, that upper low situated over the Yucatan. So it's in a good but a bad spot at the same time. And maybe that's why no one's fixating on it. No one wants to try to call it because it's going to be in such a peculiar spot for a little while. But it's there. If you're watching this, I'm putting it out there. Weather Center Nazario. I've been watching this for the last few days. I'm not trying to claim notoriety or accuracy or anything like that. It's just worth noting because no one else is trying to bring attention to it. And that's all I'm trying to say. Midday Live, I'm hyped. Gabe, did you just tune in or have you been in here? Because I'm about to get ready to end it. In October, what matters is the cold fronts and sea surface temp in the West Caribbean and high pressure. I agree. That's what a lot of people were thinking was going to happen with this. And what could get very interesting is if that tropical energy does make its way into the Gulf and we have that big potent system come down, it's still a small possibility we could get something on either side of it. Earlier runs of the GFS had something forming on the Bahamas. Some parts of the Euro had something forming out here just off the coast of Jacksonville. I think the most recent run of the Euro actually has something off our coastline. I'm not going to use 6Z. I'm going to use 0Z. Let me see. Go to precip and moisture. I think the 0Z Euro had, yeah, look at that. Has something coming up, and I bet you 10-1 if we track it with the vorticity, that comes out of the Caribbean. So yeah, we can track it forward. There's our little vorticity couplet right there, and as soon as this upper low can get the heck out of the way, look at how it wanders up, parks itself out over the Gulf of Mexico, and then we get another little frontal feature that wanders its way through, and yeah, look at that. Very back end of the Euro run. That's just in time for next weekend and beginning of next week, but we have a split solution right now. We have Euro forming it up off the West Coast. Some earlier iterations of the GFS had it forming here, so it's anybody's best guess. It is raining heavy in Portland, Jamaica, flooding in Port Antonio. They have really dense thunderstorm activity going in. That's for sure. I just got in, like I got bombarded as soon as I clocked in for work. No worries. Great analysis, Gerard. Thank you very much. That low is where Hurricane Ian was. Yeah, it was. This might be our fourth major hurricane, but it's uncertain. I'm not going that far. I'm not calling major hurricane. I'm not calling anything with this right now. I'm simply trying to bring attention to the fact that everybody is hyped up talking about what's happening out. I can't get my pen to work. There we go. Everyone's hyping this thing right here, but we need to be watching back here and what could possibly happen with this. If it stays weak and moves to the west, that's a probability. If it starts to spin, it could scoot up to the north, and that's really what's going to be the kicker on it. If it stays just this area of disorganized thunderstorm activity, it will push west. It'll push west into the Yucatan, Bay of Campeche, and we're not going to get anything out of it. If it develops even the slightest spin, we're definitely, just because of the basic laws of physics, we'll definitely see it track more like this. And I think that's what the icon is picking up on and why you can track it through time on the 12Z icon. There's our little area of thunderstorm activity right there, the lowering pressure, the troughing in the isobars. You track it north, you get a closed low right there, even though it's not stamped. There it goes. You can track it in like that. We'll go to the mean sea level wind and see. You have something on the winds as well right here. So if it spins after it gets something going right there, if it spins, it'll do exactly that. It'll make its way right in between that same general area that Idalia did earlier this winter. Not winter, earlier this hurricane season. And then it's anybody's best guess. The icon wants it to suddenly skip a beat. I don't know why the icon does that, but it tracks it right over Florida, and then something else tries to organize on the opposite coastline. So yeah. Thank you, Miss Nazar. You are correct, my man. Thank you. Larry, I appreciate you, for sure. And then what has me a little more concerned now is the fact that GFS, we're almost at the back end of the run. Let's see if it shows it again. No, we're not there yet. 6Z GFS had this coming out of the Caribbean and spinning, that big old thing. And then at 0Z, we had the same thing pop up, giant spin down over the same general area. And I know this is way far out in time, but if the GFS honed in on this as far in advance as it did, just like with the Canadian model with Idalia, it's earning my trust. And it's something we should watch out for now, because the GFS did good in highlighting a surface, well, not a surface low, but a area of lower pressure and consolidated thunderstorm activity. So it did good in that department. Now it's just a matter of watching and waiting. A few landslides as well. Schools are closed. And that's terrible, Ricardo. I'm sorry to hear that. Wow. We'll go back to the satellite loop, and you guys can see that's really intense thunderstorm activity forming right over top of them. This is the area in question, though. I'm calling it. I've put it all over my Instagram. If you guys don't follow me on Instagram, I would highly encourage you do so. It'll be a little bit easier for me to pump some rapid updates out on there. I even went as far as to say, not GFS, Hurricane Center's marking the wrong spot. We got to move our area of attention down here. That's not going to be anything. I can promise you guys that. I'm 150% confident that that's not going to form into anything. It's down in the Caribbean we need to be watching, especially as aggressive as this tropical wave is trying to form up right now. Caribbean is warm, very warm. I'm on West Coast Florida, absolutely zenful. Thank you for tuning in. This is what we've been talking about the last few days. If you guys have tuned in, not only for my videos, but Tropics Talk, I've been mentioning that the models have been repetitively hammering out we could see some kind of lowering pressure down there, not in the form of a gyre, but more of a system trying to consolidate, and it looks like we may be on the cusp of seeing something like that. That's a wave. I verified it at the surface on NHC's most recent surface analysis. We have an anticyclone back behind it, our warm temperatures, and a massive surge of moisture from Central America and down over the Pacific monsoonal trough. So now it's just a waiting game. It's going to have to battle these two huge entities on either side of it. We have a good guy back behind it, and we have a bad guy right in front of it. Literally. That's the small little area of opportunity it has. It's almost like a Venn diagram, if you will. What happened? I just arrived. Supercharas, essentially all I'm talking about is this area of interest that I've personally identified myself. Icon had something spinning up on the most recent run. Icon has actually been kind of pushing a circulation forming up on its last couple of model runs. And you can track it all the way through time, coming out of the Caribbean and making its way into the Gulf. It keeps it very weak and then tries to pin something up on the opposite side of Florida. GFS last couple of runs has been doing something very interesting with it. GFS most recent run, though, keeps it very weak, tries to organize it off the Yucatan Peninsula and then push it off to the west, which is very believable if it doesn't do anything. If it doesn't form into anything while it's out over the Caribbean, it's going to move just straight to the west and wash itself out. Canadian model doesn't have anything on there. We'll see. We have the full run of the Canadian model now, and yeah, it doesn't have anything on there. Something tries to form up off the Florida coastline later into next weekend. Maybe it's just not picking up on the vorticity out there. Hey, actually, very back end of the Canadian model run, that's for a different video and time, but that's literally exactly what I saw with Adalia before she took shape. We had a little low form up and then move over Central America just like that, and then when it showed itself, it skyrocketed right into Florida. So that's something we'll have to watch over the next couple of days, like the back end of the week. I'm not putting attention, for those of you tuning in after the live stream, I'm not putting attention on that right now, but that's literally, like verbatim, exactly what the CMC showed when Adalia came to be. We had a little low spin up, move over parts of Costa Rica, Nicaragua, and all that area, and then make its way into the Western Caribbean and pop off. So that's something else we'll have to watch down the road, very down the road. This is next week that we could see something forming up out of there. But, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and call it. Let's see what the new ensembles look like now that we have a little bit more 12Z data coming in. Yeah, look at that. I mean, GFS has something lowering in heights coming out of the Caribbean and going into the Gulf, just like the Icon. Just like the Icon right there. So, I mean, it's highlighting something. Let me see if it was on 0Z. I don't recall if I looked at 0Z ensembles. It's been a very busy day. Yeah, there it is again. Look at that. It actually wants to organize it. Coming out of the Caribbean and headed right up. There it is. So what the hell was that? If you guys have seen Close Encounters way back in the day, that's what it looked like just happened right there. All the spaceships kind of just made a run for it when the humans discovered it. But it's calling for something, and it's been consistently calling for something. Few of the models have. Let's see if the Canadian model had it there. I know I'm just delaying the end of my stream. I apologize, guys, but let's see. Right now, Canadian has a little bit of lowering pressure out there. Nothing of any major concern. And then later down the road, something huge forms up, an area low pressure. Not worth talking about right now, though. All right, I have 20 minutes left of my lunch break, guys. Thank you all for tuning in. I'm going to call it short. This has been a breaking edition of Weather Center Nazario. I'm not calling anything official. Only official statement I'm making with this live stream is that there should be a new area of interest out there that we need to be paying attention to. I'm not specifying whether or not we're going to see intensification out of it. I'm not specifying if it'll be tropical or if it'll form up into a named system. I'm not specifying any of that. And this is just CYA for my own credibility for folks who will tune in for this later. But we need to shift gears from Yucatan down into the Caribbean. I still don't understand why NHC has that highlighted. At 2 p.m., we'll see if they have anything new on their charts. If they don't, then struggle, but it is what it is. Either way, that's the area we need to be watching, at least for the next 2 or 3 days, because that's the only opportune chance it's going to have to form something up out of it before this big old system comes down and cools us off in the southeast. But all right, guys, video will be dropping today around 6 o'clock, same time as always, especially once I get out of work. I'll go ahead and film that. I'll probably try to make it very brief since I have this live stream to backfill it and my 8 p.m. Tropics talk. I think 8 p.m. is really going to tell a lot. We'll dive right into this, and at 8 o'clock, if it's another 10, 12 hours from now and those thunderstorms are still holding strong and organized, then we definitely got to keep an eye on it. But as I've mentioned in the last few iterations, that's my area of investigation. I've been watching, and now it's popping off. So there's something worth paying attention to right there. So conclusion, nix this, watch this. End of story. That's the whole thing in a nutshell, guys. Yes, please, Alex, I agree. Hit the like so we can get this out there. The little shout out. Yeah, I know, that's funny. Larry, thank you very much. Thank you, of course. Thank you for coming by and watching. Thank you guys for jumping into this last second. I know I didn't plan this at all. I kind of just decided on the spur of the moment when they clocked us out for lunch to jump in here and talk about this. But I just wanted to get that information out there, regardless if a couple people see this or everybody sees this. Either way, it's out there in the world, and that's great. So with that being said, guys, we'll see you later for Weather Center, and we'll see you tonight for Tropics Talk. This is Weather Center Nazario, signing out.